no.
Don't look at me like this. He's going to know all my triggers. Me, I'm just like, is it like...
I'm making a little note in my thing for this little Chronicle Tenant thing.
I like to see little Liam.
Yeah.
So cute, little
Liam and his friend.
Little Liam. It's small. Little Liam. Small.
See, my favorite thing is the fact that we are recording already. It's just gonna be a good chunk where it's just a bunch of people going.
You gotta add Ian again. Oh, yes. There's a lonely goat. You'd like
On that note, hello everybody. Hi everybody. Yeah.
Hi.
Well, yeah, we remember the actual people in the room right now. Hi everybody. It's good to see you guys. And then hello to everybody else. Welcome to Novice DMing, and welcome to this little conversation about yegVMP, which is our Vampire the Masquerade game that we're playing with these wonderful people. We are just having a little conversation right now that we figured this would actually be a little fun behind the veil of like what it is that we are kind of prepping up and doing, because we've played about 4 sessions so far of this game. We had a big seminar conversation as well, where we basically were engaging with talking about the concept of the game and the rules, because all of us are brand new to the system and the rules of Vampire the Masquerade. New stuff. So essentially, a lot of this leading up into our first session that's going to be recorded and will be out actually by now by the time you guys see this, is us, we have about 4 sessions kind of learning the rule set, kind of establishing the setup for what is now the yegVMP Chronicle. And one of the things that we wanted to do, because we haven't established everything that we need to, we are going to be talking about establishing Chronicle Tenets. If you guys don't know what those are, we're figuring them out ourselves. So we're going to be talking about that. Yeah. Hey, it's not novice DMing when you don't got some beginner shit you're going through. So yeah, but before we kind of go on with that, we'll introduce everybody. Here we got wonderful Sami.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being a part of the campaign, Sami. We've got the amazing Monika.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Of course.
You can call me Moni.
I didn't put that in the Zoom thing. Your name is Monika.
My name's Monika, but you can call me Moni.
You guys can call her Moni.
Here she comes now, singing Moni, Moni.
Moni,
Moni.
Okay. And then, of course, we got the cool, calm, and collected Kordell.
Why would you lie to them?
I don't know. I don't know why. Amazing Monika just had a little bit of alliteration with an M in it, and I was just like, I had to think of something. And yeah. I'm sorry.
You know what? You're the liar. So
everything behind here is lies, by the way. It's all lies. But yes, hi Kordell.
Hello. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, much like the other two. We're all happy.
Yay.
Yes. And all of you, for this, you guys are able to introduce your characters that you're going to play here, and also talk about like a little bit of what we've established with your characters. Obviously, I'm going to get you guys to do it again when we do the actual session come here. But for this, it's going to be more talking about the mechanical breakdowns of your individuals, like kind of talking about what your concepts are, and talking about especially what your character convictions and touchstones are. If there's little fun things you want to share for everybody, you're welcome to. But yeah, we're just going to be getting into establishing our tenets. Once you guys do your introduction, I'll talk a little bit about what that's going to be. But yeah, whoever wants to start first is welcome to.
All right. It's because I'm the only one on this side of the table.
We can gang up on you over here.
Yes.
Totally.
I feel it every day.
All the time. All the time. Yeah, so my character's name is, her real name is Constance Burrows. I'm not 100% sure where I should be looking. I'm just going to look at the camera. So my character's real name is Constance Burrows. Her date of vampirification is during the Salem witch trials. That's when she was turned. So she is like a 300-year-old vampire in this game, 350-ish. And she is going by a fake pseudonym, and her pseudonym is Dr. Penny Potts. She is a psychologist, a therapist, and she is kind of on a quest to redeem herself from her vampirism, redeem other vampires, help them function. She's wicked into psychology. She watches like a lot of like psychology TikTok. It's great. Her touchstones and convictions. So her first conviction is always carry hope. And the touchstone for this is one of her first patients. His name is Roger Bailey, and he's a war veteran. And basically, her connection to him is, being a war veteran, he carries a lot of survivor's guilt. He deals with a lot of symptoms of like PTSD and things like that. So watching him be able to heal and grow with her assistance, like gives, I'm gonna just call her Penny for simplicity, gives Penny a lot of hope. Always carry hope. If this person can be rehabilitated and if he can find a way to forgive himself and move on with his life after everything he's done, maybe she can as well. And then her other conviction is never turn your back on a monster. And this one is actually tied to the touchstone of her own sire, whose name is Sebastian Bishop. And he's a character, that Sebastian Bishop. He's a very charismatic sociopath who radicalized her after siring her. It's like a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole
It's
thing.
it's like your whole thing.
It's kind of, So that is maybe more stuff that you've already seen in gameplay and stuff. So I don't need to go super in depth. Yeah. I feel like charismatic sociopath who radicalizes people into violence is like a pretty good like description.
Yeah, we probably know.
It's
a tale as old as time, am I right?
Right? Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
But which is which?
Mrs. Potts.
Yeah.
Well, look at us going. It's a Disney fairy tale waiting to happen. Disney, you gotta call us first if you pay rights. I swear to God. One thing I will share with everybody, and too, especially if we have people who are brand new to Vampire, which I'm sure many people are. Was really interesting with having the touchstones and convictions. God, I forgot the word. They are basically the thing that ties your vampire to a semblance of humanity, that doesn't make your vampire go immediately into becoming a monster at any like whim. It's the idea of kind of like setting your own parameters and everything for this, and find like how do you feel your character is going to be tied to humanity and not just descend into a monstrous form. Because if any of the players descend to zero humanity, I get their character sheet and they are mine now. And that's usually how that works. And everything that Sami had just shared was stuff that Sami was presenting as ideas, and we workshopped it together when we were like going through the flow. Normally, too, with touchstones, they're not always vampires. They're typically humans. But that was just such a good one that I'm like, yes, we're going to do this. And it's going to be so much more hard. And it was also a thing where it's like, because you were playing such an older vampire, that it was like, I had no concern of like, we're going to give you a very hard touchstone to have to maintain with a very, very complicated conviction, which I really liked. So yeah, thanks for introducing us all to Penny Potts. Who's next?
Okay, hi. My name's Monika again. I'm not going to be as great as Sami at this because I do forget my notes all the time, which makes things a lot.
You saw that I completely forgot the word conviction. Right?
Yeah, so
I'm game mastering.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. I will be able to look at the camera the entire time as convicting or convincing. See, here we go. Here we go. But anyways,
we love you.
Thank you. Love you guys too. So my character, her name is Gertrude. People call her Gertie. She does not have a last name because she kind of just threw that away with her past when she ran away at like age 14, 15. She was born in like the 1950s, late 1950s. She was turned in her 30s. So she does present as a 30-year-old. She eventually, during her lowest times, when she did run away, had met somebody named Patty. And through Patty for many years, she kind of was introduced to this biker gang. And this whole biker gang ended up being her family and been her home and everything like that. And so she ended up becoming kind of like what you would consider like a guard dog. So if they need anything done, like she's like the type of lady that would kind of like back that person up in a way. So yeah, and eventually Patty did turn Gertie, and she became just like kind of like almost infatuated with Patty. Like anything Patty says, anything like goes. She might like question some things just because she is concerned for Patty's well-being, but once Patty kind of puts her foot down, it's like, okay, it's gonna happen kind of deal. I will say though that her she has like an ambition. Can I say my ambition?
Of course you
Yeah,
can.
that it's
sure,
pretty
whatever.
much just put Patty on top. Whatever Patty wants in general is she wants to be on top of the masquerade. Who knows? Who cares? She's going to make that happen. And it doesn't even matter. There's a kind of almost like two biker gangs that are like into one, and the other one who rules it, his name is Lux. And so even Gertie doesn't really do what Lux says, but if Patty says for her to get along with these people, then she's going to do it, right? My touchstone and convictions essentially it's just like I will always protect animals because she has always had this like huge heart for dogs specifically, but animals. She runs a like an animal, well, dog rescuing group. She goes out and saves these dogs, and they ended up having and like does that and kind of she's really really into that kind of stuff. It's kind of her own little division in this group. And then it's like I was always provide for the home, and the home being the group in general. And they yeah, and then
Like your gang clubhouse and the
Yeah.
entirety of the place. Even if like you're like if something, God forbid, something was to happen to your clubhouse, that
God forbid, Liam, God forbid.
you would the home is basically like your family in that
Yeah.
unit. That is essentially like
Yeah.
the thing you provide for.
I provide for them, yeah. And then my touchstone is Patty, but it's an intense touchstone. She only has one, and it is Patty. If anything happened to Patty, Liam probably would end up with my character. That is how bad it is. Something really bad happened to Patty. Like it is insane. It's almost like yandere insane of how much she loves Patty. It's intense. And so yeah, and then the place to hang out is called the Drive and Dive. Drive and Dive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, got it right. See, look at me going. I know some of my stuff. And there is I know my character. I've been doing this for how many weeks? And right next to it is like a chop shop. We don't really go and sell drugs or do anything like that because we are a gang, but we do steal vehicles. It's a lesser of the evils, right?
Like strip cars.
Yeah,
To
and-
make new cars to sell to people.
Exactly. And we do have like guard dogs there and stuff, the ones that Gertie gets attached to. I will also say there's this kid named Price who also got changed by Patty. It's like him and I that I know of that Liam has told me about, we're the only two people that Patty has specifically changed. So I always find him as my younger brother, though he tries to get under my skin all the time. I kind of put him in his place, but deep down I still love him, and I love the group in general. So yeah, am I missing anything? I don't think I'm missing anything. She's just like this stocky butch woman, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll
Bryce
get
does
to
also
that.
look significantly younger than you.
Oh yeah,
Like,
100%. Like
it's like 14 years younger.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, and I may look 32, but I'm like, yeah, I'm like almost 70 years old at this point. But yeah, and I know we're gonna get into like her character, like books wise and all that kind of stuff later. But yeah, that's essentially her. Nailed it.
you did. Fun.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. Your turn.
Yeah. I'm Kordell again. Still Kordell.
Not as cool, calm, and collected though.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm playing the character of Declan Lynch, known to some as Irish, known to some as Hangman, and known to most as just Dex. Basically, he is just the good dad, private eye. He got turned right before Y2K. Looks to be kind of like late 20s, and had just his at the time fiance had just given birth to his daughter right before he got turned, and decided screw the masquerade, family's more important. Basically immediately told his wife that something happened, his fiance, and went through this whole thing. Does not care about the masquerade, only cares about the people that are important to him. His fiance passed away when his daughter was like kind of pre-teen age, and they moved. He was originally from Ireland, moved to Boston and now has moved to Edmonton over the last little bit because his daughter has gotten work in schooling and work in Edmonton in the medical field. And she's also the person who gives him blood bags to make sure that he can stay pretty cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
Former police officer and very like good with a gun, good with driving, very much in that, but grew up as a hooligan. So literal football hooligan in Ireland. So he does not weirdly was a part of authority, hates authority. Those are his big things. With that, his touchstones, one of his big ones is always question authority. He actually got this from his sire. So funny how all of us have touchstones as our sires. But his sire Amanda, who was kind of a rebel within the masquerade, trying to kind of escape it herself, turned him to kind of give herself an ally. And very much from what I understand and from what we talked about, kind of instilled in him like both options suck. And when it comes to the masquerade, or I guess technically all three options of leadership for the masquerade and stuff, all are not good. And so he's been pretty lone wolf for the majority of the time that he's been a kindred. He also never will harm innocents or children. Got this from a young girl that he saved from an abusive situation when he was a police officer in Boston. And his most powerful touchstone, which is very similar to Gertie's with when it comes to Patty, is his daughter, Cass. And with that, he thinks that all humans must be respected. His daughter is still human. He believes that, he does know he's a monster, but he's trying to do everything he can to not be a monster for her, trying to connect with her still, trying to help her. And if anything happened to her, same thing.
Yeah.
He would no longer care about his humanity because she is the only thing that's really keeping him on that path to humanity as of right now. And that's basically Declan.
I've never had like players like straight up look me in the eye and just be like, just so you know, this game is over if you do anything with these particular things. Like it's kind of the idea of challenging you on that idea, you wouldn't do that in like D&D or something. It's just like, oh yeah, I know my parents are dead and all this kind of stuff, but this is like, if you do anything, I swear to God, to Patty or to my daughter, this is over.
Done.
None of this means anything.
Penny's touchstones? Kill all of them.
Yeah.
She's fine.
Yeah.
If you reform Sebastian Bishop, I swear to God.
If he becomes a humanitarian, Penny's becoming the monster.
Asshole.
If
Just all of a sudden picks up a dying dog and cradles it back to health, I'm gonna put you in the ground.
If you do a bait and switch episode where Sebastian acts reformed and Patty loses her marbles and starts becoming the monster, trying to prove he's still a monster, I will flip not this table because I respect this table, but
she'll bring a small, tiny toy table and flip it.
Yeah.
I'll get a pizza.
I will get one of those little plastic things between the pizza.
I will put it, and I will
get Allie Beardsley, Vic Michaelis, and Jacob Wysocki into this room, and I will flip them onto the table, which will also wreck the table.
Perfect.
I love that episode so very much. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. So getting into the meat of what we're kind of talking about here. So we have currently not established a coterie for these particular players. That was one thing that we were kind of exploring the possibility of. Currently, it does not exist. It could potentially in the future, depending on how you guys progress through the actual Chronicle. But establishing the tenets is very important because these tenets, like you guys have very strong convictions and touchstones for yourselves. But one of the things that I think is very important within a game of Vampire is to remember ourselves is that we are unified not by, we're unified by something that connects us all throughout the actual experience. And while good convictions and touchstones can happen, we can sometimes feel as if, I don't want to necessarily adhere to somebody else's, respecting of a monster, even though I'm not, but I also don't want to put that person at a disadvantage. but you also want to respond in kind, but it could feel very much like this thing of like player versus player could potentially be a thing when it comes to betraying the convictions or chronicles of another person's character. That's at least how I view it. I also think that it's like you can sometimes forget the nuances of like everything you guys have shared when it comes to just like being an outsider to the actual experience of another person. And so it ties into that kind of the concept of humanity and how could you measure it? Like if I'm betraying something in a situation, how could I do it? It gets a little bit muddy. What the Chronicle Tenets do is one thing for me and like a few things for you guys is that it ties you all to a collective set of things for your own humanity tracks. So it's like it's creating the concept of the very hyper specific thing and giving you a broader scope and the boundaries of like your sandbox to play in. But it's based on what you guys want to do. And they're also very non-complicated. Like it's also like only saying 3 things for yourselves. So there's still a little bit of a fun with it and agreeing with it as a group and saying, we want to do these together. Actually, our last session we had, Sami, you weren't with us and we had kind of discussed this, but it was like, we're coming up with ideas, but they just don't feel right because you're not here. We don't want to cement anything because you're not here. The only thing that we kind of agreed to, and as a storyteller for this, like thinking about it, what it was the fact that everybody feels as if they are on a track that is very like not humanitarian-esque, but there's a lot of stuff about respecting humans, even respecting vampires, very much like trying to make sure that certain individuals become the higher ups in their own fields. So we kind of established something to be like a creative redemption as the potential banner for these 3 tenets you set. And what it helps for me too is to think about like where it is like good elements to push, like challenging those moments of humanity in terms of constructing a story. Because I can focus things on all of you like individually. But if I'm looking at those tenets and being able to say what is established here, I can then think about how this could relate to it and make it relevant to the actual story. Because I want to do that. I don't want to just introduce, and this is Phil. He lives in Edmonton, and he also has a mustache, and he's a bad dude. And that's just challenging you, but like it doesn't challenge you guys. Like, just who cares?
Fuck
Who cares
that
about
guy.
Phil? Yeah,
Nah.
fuck Phil.
Fuck Phil.
Yeah. Yeah. How dare you? I saw you do that. Mark a stain on your humanity because you didn't like Phil. See, so that's the thing is like
Eat a dick, Phil.
Sorry, I should have asked. Is there a rating for this show? No swearing, 18A.
Oh, that's the
Will it
thing.
progressively get higher?
Yeah, honestly,
Literally, what if the rating just progressively gets higher?
there's one of my campaigns I censor myself on YouTube. It's called the Fuck Stick Fucker campaign.
I love that campaign.
Yeah, Monica's in that campaign.
I love that campaign.
And because we're dealing with vampire stuff, like what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to kind of give like little descriptions and stuff. But honestly, it is implied that it's like usually older tiers and stuff. I know high schoolers play vampire, but we will be swearing. We'll be talking about violence and all that kind of stuff. We do have pretty mature content. I won't censor it in terms of an age restriction, but just giving people the heads up.
We're starting like 16 plus, but we could get to like unrated.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
It's improv, baby.
Yeah. And everybody knows improv's best when it's
Yes, and fun.
very uncomfortable.
And edgy.
And someone pulls out a gun.
Guns solve every problem.
The funniest thing is that my character literally has a gun.
But it doesn't solve every problem.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
It might in this opening scene.
As long as it's fired by the end of every section.
Just every
I actually wrote Chekhov on it.
Gun's name is Chekhov.
Yeah.
Like,
Say hello to Chekhov.
What?
I'm not gonna shoot you now.
So that in mind, feel free if we want to talk about let's talk about our Chronicle Tenets for you guys and anything that you guys might want to bring up if you guys have thought about it or if there are ones that from when we were talking about before. Love to have that discussion. And then once you guys are saying we have them, and then we can talk about that, and that will be the end of this.
Cool.
I like the ones that we were discussing before. I can't remember what they were, but I agreed with them at the moment.
Yeah, the whole redemption, creative redemption thing, I think fits really well. I was trying to think of it because like I don't think for our characters a tenet of something like everyone can be redeemed, I don't think fits with it. Because like I know for a fact when it comes to you that it's like in your mind Sebastian can't be redeemed.
Yeah.
like he is a monster through and through. There is no saving him. But I wonder if there could be something like a tenet of like the dead can't be redeemed, and like not undead, but like kind of a thing of like giving a chance to those who could be redeemed, and not just like almost along the lines of like not killing innocents, and kind of a thing where it could be something along the lines of like, you know, even for like you, if someone were to like step away from your like the caller and do some bad shit, it's like, well, I feel like Patty even would be like, I want to give them a chance to prove themselves worthy of coming back, and not just outright like, you know, chain them on a fence in the sun. Like
They should be chained. They left and they trying to gain Patty stress again. You can go fuck themselves.
but you know, I think it's like the big thing of like, obviously in Gertie's mind, but I do think Patty would still want to like, again, keeping the family. Like it's the whole what's the story, the like the guy, the son who goes away, it's like the biblical story. And he like he like leaves and then comes back, and they're like, we forgive you, and like that kind of thing, giving him a chance. And
story.
The
Bible.
Oh,
I don't actually know that one.
Jacob and Eve
Probably go to church.
And it, like I think it was.
Jacob steals his brother's birthright.
Yes, he coats his arm in hair.
Yeah,
his father touches his hand. He's like, I give you my birthright, and then his son's like,
yeah,
what the heck, Dad? I have hairy arms, but he just like
because the father is blind. So Jacob pretends to be his brother, who's a very hairy person. And so he like runs away so they don't kill him, and then he like finds a family, gets married, and like comes back, and he's like, I'm sorry I stole your birthright, and his brother's like, I love you, I missed you.
So I think kind of having like kind of that vibe, I think being like, you know, there's obviously, I think, like a line for all of our characters where it's like, once you cross this line, we know you can't be redeemed. Like again, Sebastian being one, being like a mass murderer, serial killer, psychopath
who's hot,
super hot,
so hot, so hot,
who for over like 300 years has been murdering and turning and like doing all this. Like I feel like for each of our separate characters, that's someone who we can't redeem. That's not someone who's
you can just turn down the fire though, because he's so hot.
So hot.
Like from delicious.
Yummy.
But
yum.
I do think that could definitely be a part of it. Is something along the lines of like, you know, if like, again, I don't know the exact terming, like, but something of like the dead can't be redeemed.
Like,
and I think even that could be a thing of like, I feel like in Penny's eyes, Sebastian is dead inside. Like not just a kindred, but like there is no emotion, there is no compassion, which you could view as like, you know, for the characters is like that's dead to them. Because all three of these characters have that level of compassion, a level of sympathy and empathy, even as the kindred. Like for you, it might be more towards dogs, but like it's still there, where it's like once you see like someone is no longer capable of that, then it's like, okay, there's nothing we can do.
There's nothing I can do.
This is one thing I will say with this in terms of tying still to your humanity on that. The idea that saying the dead can't be redeemed. A lot of the associations you guys will be probably having is with other vampires. And so a broad term of saying the dead can't be redeemed, it would also prescribe that still to other vampires as well. So what that means is that, well, then there's no way to then have the hope be carried, and that would be very difficult for yourself, because it comes to the concept of you never turn your back on a monster. But it's like, it's one of those things of a the contradiction within that can be a little bit of a mess. Just because it's such a broad statement on certain things.
Is there certain like heartless or maybe
or like those who don't want redemption can't be redeemed?
More like autonomy. Of like redemption is a choice. Redemption is an active choice. It's almost like I mean, I don't mean to make this parallel in any sort of negative way, but when you do like a 12-step program, it's like, you know, they say like the first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have one. Right? So it's sort of like redemption is an active choice. Like your humanity and goodness are active choices.
I also feel like though for some people they want to get better and they want to be redeemed, but some of them just can't. And so I feel like by saying that like only like if you want to be redeemed, you can. But some people that are addicts or something like that, they struggle so hard with. You want to believe that they can be redeemed, and you'll try to help them, but sometimes like they just, they go from wanting to they themselves don't even believe anymore that they can be redeemed.
Exactly, and that's also why it's very unique to this specific chronicle for you guys. Like it's a very important thing to say, because I think that what's very important is that what I've seen from you all, you've all taken active roles to the choices you've made. And so what I do love about it is that as a creative redemption, I think that giving yourselves a standard of it is like again, you don't have to be the embodiment for every person in the world, but being the embodiment of the kind of redemption and choice that you want to see is a good thing. So I actually do like that idea of saying, this might be a little wordy, and we can fine tune it, but it's like if when you cross the line, you can actively correct it, like making an actions or doing something and committing yourself to an action to correct a mistake is the best way to resolve it or to solve a mistake. At least something along that line.
Yeah, almost like this is a very, very base version, but almost like mistakes can be fixed.
Yeah, because it would also say something too in a story is like if you guys make a very big mistake in the game, like as a group, if you fail a certain circumstance and it is like it almost looks as if there is no thing, and you all actively say we're not doing this anymore, or a big one would be because there's the thing called the project dies, which is the indication of like if you guys want to pursue a project, and if that project keeps failing and failing, and if you guys actively then decide we're going to turn our backs on this project and we're not going to pursue it anymore, that would be a huge stain in your guys' humanity. That would be a very big action, very big choice.
Yeah, we're all quite stubborn though, especially us two. But
well, sure, yeah.
But I feel like
I think that even works kind of in a good regard to this, because it's like I do feel like, I mean, again, with a past session with you, like, you didn't necessarily mean to put a bunch of guys in the hospital, but
I didn't.
But in that moment, it's like you were being attacked, and you were trying to, what in your mind was like, I'm trying to fix the mistake afterwards of like, okay, I did this, I destroyed my bike. Now I'm actively pursuing and trying to get back into the good graces. I'm trying to you literally have as a character been trying to control your urges to just throw a bike at someone.
I did it once. Apparently I can't do it twice.
But it's like that thing of like, even with that, like it with the stubbornness too, and like kind of knowing like for you specifically, it's like, I don't want to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
And it's like for some mistakes, like they're fixable in the way of like you can go and just, if you break a bike, you can build a new bike or fix it. Some ways it's like fixable by if you make a mistake, making sure that you do not actively make the same mistake over and over. And I think that's like for Gertie specifically is kind of where you are, where it's like, I'm trying to fix my mistakes by learning from.
Yeah.
And then, so it's like, even though, and like the stubbornness for Declan too, it's like, he is trying to like fix things with like, the little things with his daughter, where it's like, I have forgotten every name of the partners that you've had, but I'm writing it down and trying to actively remember. I'm trying to like be involved, even though it's difficult, because he knows like in the past it's been more difficult for her trying to have a relationship, trying to live her life with her vampire father still there. And so
that could be a sitcom.
Actually. Yeah, good. But I think like that's the thing where it's like, and then you are actively trying to fix problems all the time.
Yeah.
So
actively trying to prevent anyone else from making my mistakes.
Yeah. Here's something I'm thinking about for a second one, because you guys are hitting something. And I think this is you made a very important thing about saying, I don't want to leave a negative connotation on this. And you also talking about like some people's circumstances different. What I love about this too is, again, setting the standard of what you all believe is this kind of this important situation. I was thinking a lot about the concept of judgment. The idea of like, what kind of things do you put and judge people on? We have an investigator here who's very good at their job, and we have a psychologist who's also very good. And you are someone who lends yourself to the professional papers of people in the game. So we have you two that leave a very good standard of, you need to understand a person, help them uncover these things for themselves. What I was thinking of is a potential one that could be that idea of like never judge a book until you've read it all the way through kind of thing.
Mhm.
This idea of like the only way to understand what someone's true intentions are is if you dedicate the time to know what they are in the process. I know that would be very difficult for Gertie in particular cases, but that's another thing is like where that unity can come from. And there's other ways for Gertie to discover that kind of stuff as well. But I want to ask how you guys feel about that kind of concept.
I think that works really well. And I think also, I think the idea of when it comes to like the tenets and stuff, it's not only stuff that like we're all trying to pursue, but also in a way we're all trying to learn in our own ways. And so I think like even with that, like you again would still kind of have that as someone who's very like protective of dogs, someone who's like trying to keep them. It's like you would be the type of person who's like, don't judge a dog by its breed.
Yeah.
Like just because the dog is like
the dog bit your hand. Well, what were you doing to the dog in the first place? Like it could be on that surface level thing. Like you can just see what really was the thing. That's really good.
Yeah. So I think like it's the thing where it's like Gertie already has that. She just hasn't quite figured out yet how to put that on to other kindred or people or anything like that. It's like you've started with animals and you're figuring it out, and it's like it's kind of like again that like weird three person thing where it's like you're in their mind, I'm like seeing around them, and you have like the base like guttural instinct of like again like judging animals, judging the mind, judging the actions kind of a thing. And especially with all of us having beasts inside of us, I think the idea of like not judging the beast makes sense as well, because it's like for you it might be literally dogs, but kind of in that figurative sense it's like also judging the beasts within each person and knowing that like each beast is different as well, and some might be more like scared and injured and just lashing out when they feel threatened, where others like Sebastian are just, I'm going to kill everything in my path.
There's also a history as to why an individual would know what he's practiced here. Again, it's not a concept of breed because he's the same clan as you. But there's a difference in terms of how you've attributed all that good stuff. So that's a good way to put it.
Totally.
I like that.
I like that one. That's a solid one.
I love how it ties into like the concept of like clarity and self-awareness and radical acceptance of like, you know, you don't carpet sweep. Like none of our characters pretend that we're not vampires, but all of our characters are dedicated to like coexisting, like finding a way to navigate the world around us without circumstances kind of thing, without like causing undue harm.
I think another thing that I don't know if this would be tied to a tenet at all, but something I like about all the characters that we have is all of them in their own ways are very accepting of the fact that they're flawed, and very accepting of like you said, not only the fact of like we're all vampires, we're all kindred, like we are technically all monsters, but like the fact that like you know that you have a past, and you don't try, like obviously you don't tell all the people that come into your office, but like you're not trying to hide the fact that like you do kind of have a chip on your shoulder, you do think you're the smartest person in the room, and you don't like hide behind it. You are very like, this is how I am. For Declan, it's like one of his weaknesses is the fact that he is trying to stay so off grid that he can't easily go to a computer or his phone and search things up on the internet. He's still using like cassettes for music and stuff, but he owns it, and he's like completely fine with the fact that this is the way that he is, and like knowing that he's made mistakes as a father and that he's trying to fix that. And Gertie is like, again, learning this thing of like, I can't just use violence all the time to solve all my problems. And you know it, and you are actively trying to avoid doing it. And so it's just like this thing of like, I think where a lot of vampires in like other chronicles and media in general have almost this vibe of like, I am better than everyone around me. And having this thing of like, I am like the perfect predator, I am like you know the next evolution kind of a
world
thing.
And in a social, and a game that focuses on social political stuff, then the politics my character holds and the opinion I have is the one that is the most sound
Mhm.
based on my experiences in terms of all of this.
Yeah.
Whereas we're acknowledging the fact of like, yes, I'm highly flawed.
Yeah.
I'm very flawed.
Also tired.
And I'm very tired.
Yeah.
And it's like
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
and that does have a cloud, and it does have a clouding of some kind of an effect on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like almost this like, again, I don't know how this would fit into a tenant, but like almost something along the lines of like acknowledging that everyone is flawed
Yeah.
and kind of like even acknowledging your own flaws and stuff. Cause I think that could be, again, kind of interesting where it's like as a group of three who all have three very different strengths.
Yeah.
It's like, if we get separated or if there's something happening and something happens that's like a real hard intelligence like kind of a thing, and Gertie's like, no, I'm smart enough, I can figure it out, I don't need help from anyone, even though to be real, Gertie intellectually the weakest of the group, right?
Intellectually needs help a little bit.
Yeah, and knowing
Street
that, like,
smarts though, pretty good.
yeah,
Everything else needs help.
and like knowing like also for like Penny too, like I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like physically is the weakest of the three.
Oh yes, you could
Like-
snap me in half like a
Yeah.
human child.
And-
Snap her in half like a turkey. She is flimsy. She's a Fabergé.
Tanner, be careful. But I think
Seattle,
with
yeah.
that again, it's like if you get into a situation where it's like, even if it was like with Sebastian, and knowing like I don't have the physical strength to do something here, and not just trying to ignore your flaws and be like, no, I'm better than him, I could take him,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Like I think something maybe along those lines of like almost in a weird way, like acceptance of ourselves
Yeah.
as vampires
Yeah.
and as people, and trying to like really like somehow tie that to something, because I think like it's that thing of like, again, our mistakes can be
Yeah.
fixed. We don't judge the book until we've read it, and we accept that like we ourselves are flawed beings.
Yeah.
And,
Humility.
yeah, like something like with humility to be like,
Yeah.
I think of all the
Yeah, be
vampires in like especially like the area,
Be humble.
we probably are like the three most humble vampires in a way, because we are like, and also none of us are actually fully tied to any side of the masquerade really.
Yeah, you guys,
Yeah.
and I should say, you have touched on the most direct one, and
Yeah.
just trying to contact.
Yeah,
Aaron.
I'm just trying to get information, and
That's
I'm like,
it.
I know who to talk to, but like
it.
Patty's group has never shown allegiance to
Mhm.
either. I know like which way they would lean towards, but they have not actively said anything.
Mhm.
Penny, who's been around for the longest, would know the most about it, has not shared any allegiances.
Yeah, exactly.
Declan has very actively been like lone wolf.
Yeah.
I'm flying under the radar kind of a person, and just knowing like we all understand in our own ways that kind of level, like what humility, what knowing that we are flawed and stuff can actually be a strength in a way.
Yeah.
Because like again, a lot of other vampires, I mean, what's his nuts, the guy from
What's his nuts?
the guy from V's meeting, who was,
Miles.
yeah, Miles,
Yeah, like
not realizing, like trying to go into basically a charismatic social battle with a literal rock star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously he also didn't know that like there were other vampires who were kind of like a little bit more on the side of V, but like thinking that he could just easily blow through that, being kind of like, I'm a kindred, I'm one of these,
Yeah.
I'm one of the new earners, like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And as the characters don't know, but as players we know, he got flayed alive and left to die in the sun
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of he did not have the level of like humility or knowing his own flaws, and knowing like I probably shouldn't go to a verbal battle with a guy whose literal job is
Yeah.
being on a stage talking and singing to people
and charming people.
and charming people.
Yeah.
And I think that's like kind of a thing where again it's like in a weird way, like knowing that we're not perfect is the thing that's helping us be in some ways better kindred.
Yeah.
And so I think something along that line of, again, like something like humility or something, I think could work.
I
Yeah.
think it's not even just about better kindred; it's just a better tie again to your humanity in that space. But yes.
And I think, sorry,
Don't apologize.
Never apologize.
You should apologize for actually speaking and being in this room.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think that maybe comes from a place of like all of our characters are very aware of consequences. Like, even like Gertie, you're aware that your actions have consequences because your actions impact how Patty sees you. And like Declan understands that his actions have consequences because the masquerade can like impact his daughter's safety. And Penny's very aware that actions have consequences because for like 300 years she like was part of like a radical vampire group who like mercilessly like slaughtered and destroyed, ripped whole families apart just like kind of for funsies. Yeah. So like yeah, that humility, that like I was like, what's the opposite of hubris?
Yeah, it's almost honestly like what you're saying makes me think almost like just straight up doing like every action has an opposite and equal reaction.
It's
Is
almost the
like
golden
almost
rule.
kind of that too, where it's like we know that like if we do something, there will be consequences. No matter what it is, even if it's a positive thing, there are still some level of consequences. And I think that, yeah, I think that's really a good way to put it with that.
It's almost like, how do I use this power responsibly?
With great power comes great responsibility.
So
Nailed it.
Spider-Man it.
yeah.
I was trying to think of a cooler way to put it on, but that's actually pretty direct and succinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask if you had any
Yeah.
on this as well, Monica. Because your character actively threw a motorcycle at other people.
We don't
So
need to
you
tell
have
people
great-
that.
No, I didn't want to talk about it. You
We
do
don't
have
need to
you
talk
do
about
have great power.
Mhm.
I have responsibilities. How I feel about it. No, I actually I like what they've had to say. A lot of what they had to say because it does touch upon like each and every one of us. So I was going to say that a lot with like Gertie's character of just I got shy. Okay. With Gertie's character and everything, the fact that she's like constantly trying to be better, not just like for herself per se, but yeah, for Patty. We all have kind of like that way of just we're doing things for a reason even without the masquerade kind of like overlooking us and everything, and we have like purpose, which I think is really cool. So I think that's what you guys like talking about those kinds of things. I really kind of enlightened me a little bit of even my own character a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, you're kind of right about that.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's also like kind of funny because even what you just said too, which I didn't think about, but like unlike a lot of stuff that I've seen, because like I watch little things of Vampire, our characters are so like we have goals. And there's also a masquerade. Like it's not like a lot of them are like we have goals within the masquerade, but for us it's literally like the masquerade is just kind of like
it's over there.
Yeah, it's almost like
it's
like it is looming and it is there, and we know it's like a big like umbrella over us.
Yeah.
But we have other shit to do.
Yeah,
so it's like I just as people and like as beings, we're like we have our own plans and desires and stuff that don't connect to this at all, really. Like in certain ways.
baby,
Yeah, but it's like we have like again going to like for Declan, one of the anarchs, and trying to communicate with them is trying to get more information to try and help protect his daughter. And just knowing I as an investigator can find anarchs easier than trying to find the ivory tower Camarilla. And being able to be like, this is an easier option, this has the opportunity to be helpful. That's why I'm doing it. It's nothing to do with the actual politics of the two. And so I think that's like a thing. And then for you too, like I'm assuming like because I know you have like the normal human people that come to you, but also like kindred do. And it's like I feel like you probably do not discriminate. Like if they're an anarch, if they're Camarilla, it doesn't matter to you. You're like, this is what my goal is to help people.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna help people.
Hippocratic oath, right? The
Yeah.
like do no harm and like non-judgment and like whatever someone's situation is, my job is to help that person be able to make the choices that they want to make within that situation and not to like tell them how to fix their life. Although sometimes Penny isn't super great at that part, but like, you know, allowing people like empowering people to like make their own choice. Maybe there's like an empowerment layer of like, the great power comes great responsibility, empowering people in spite of their situation to like have management.
So this is actually something I think is very, very important to kind of go on. So one thing that I think is, again, trying to tie in the specifics. One of the deep desires that I have personally with writing this is, one, to understand my city more, to understand Edmonton more, to get.
Don't know why you want to do that, but
Don't say that on camera.
I mean, Edmonton is great. You're heading into a pothole every 2 meters. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna focus on the actual consideration that we need better infrastructure in this game. It's gonna be like,
That's
you're riding on your motorcycle.
That's actually why I have a car and you have a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Is that we can drive and then Penny can just be like, wow, this infrastructure sucks.
Yeah. But it's like that understanding, but also a big thing with it too is like a lot of heavy shit has happened both in like Alberta and in the city and in general. There's a lot of things that we are just either collectively or individually going through in the process. And one thing that is in particular, I think we can all agree, is that there has been a tremendous surge of this avoidance of the taking of responsibility, and also the avoidance of acknowledging that we just don't all have answers to certain things. And we're not trying to mask or cloak ourselves in the idea that a higher status or higher financial gain or something is the answer or the key to us being able to excel in whatever practice. Like what I mean by that very clearly, when you guys say we embrace and accept our flaws, that is an inspiring thing for me to look at and say, that's how we get better as a society. Not when we cloak the ideas and the concepts of like, I don't want to feel uncomfortable with the things that I don't understand and I don't know, or I don't want to feel guilty about the things and the mistakes I've made. Like, fuck that. Mm-hmm. What you should want to do is embrace and understand the concept of your flaws and your mistakes, because it strengthens you for the actual ability to get better with people that you're with. That's what I think is actually really important. And I don't think that, like, it should be, I think there can be judgment, but once again, coming back to the concept, you judge a book by when you understand the full end of it. You get to understand it when you get to place that judgment on somebody once you know the full context. If that person is truly a bad person, they give you all this different rigmarole, and you understand, they got a high manipulation stat, that's why they can say that and why they say it, then you know you can pass judgment. And then you also have to tailor to the concept, again, that in order for you to act on this, you have a responsibility to something that is still higher. You're powerful individuals, even if you can be broken by a child, but you still have this great power. And I think at the end of the day, that is something that leads to redemption as an actual stronghold. Like, again, a creative redemption, I think, it's not just the concept of, I was looking at some of the tenets on the side here and I'm like, okay, they're very broad, but to me, if you're living on a concept of redemption, you're not just living it for your own sakes, you're embodying it so that if you brought other people into the fold of a coterie or a group, they can look at those as the same tenets that you can have. And isn't that the American dream?
Accountability.
The Canadian dream.
Accountability is the Canadian dream.
So
yes, accountability and being kind.
So if I may, on to give it very succinct stuff with this to kind of get us going into a session here, I changed up a little bit of the concept of the mistakes. You find actions to improve the mistake. I think that a better way to put that is, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's a very good one. It's like, it's an understanding that you are powerful, but you also must be held to account.
1 second. You're about to say another thought, and I'm going to lose the thought you were.
That's okay. I'm also writing this down for me. Go. I'm gonna just say words right now so it still looks interesting. I don't know if that's trademarked or not. If we want to even change responsibility, we could change it to accountability. With great power comes great accountability.
That's true. But this way we can say we're Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Why are you trying to ruin our flow here, man?
That's fine.
Our happiness.
I mean,
You're already going to take it away anyways throughout this game.
True.
Let's have the little great
You know what? That's
little
fine. I
ounce
like that. It's
of
fine.
happiness.
copyright.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
fine. Don't judge a dog by its breed, or don't judge a book until the end. Which I will say, I like that we have both of those because we can attribute it by how much like intellectual skills you have, and you can choose which one. So like I think that's a great one to have for Gertie here because it will allow you to still be tied to that, even though it's like I know that some of the stats you have don't necessarily allow for you to go on a big sleuthing mission at all times.
I finally upped one
That's
investigation.
true. So
Hey,
And you can help me.
maybe we'll
Because
be.
I'll be upset because literally, let me tell you, in the few games we had, the amount of times where I'm like, I need investigation, it was insane. Where I was like,
so funny too.
wow.
How you're like, yeah, I've got investigation. So if it's an intelligence investigation, I get 2. If it's a wits investigation, I get 3. And then I'm like, if it's intelligence, I get 6. And if it's wits, I get 8.
Hey. I got my little.
And if it's specifically deduction, I think I get an extra one, so I could get up to 9.
So this is the last one I was going to say here is the idea of that embracing of your flaws. I think it like, and again, finding the wording of this, I think is failure or your it's like your failure reveals your humanity, or your flaw opens your humanity, or something like that. I'm trying to think exactly what it means.
Yeah.
Or like literally like to be
Humanity
flawed.
is flawed.
Yeah, it could be
To
like
err
that's
is to
always
be
flawed.
human.
to err is to be human.
Like silent breakdown.
I love how, because we have
I like that.
the psychologist character, these are all sounding like quite philosophical.
The cracks are where the light gets in.
And part of me is going through my brain here is like ideas of like how this can actually be like a mechanic that can actually be encouraged. I really do like all of this. I think that the way I would kind of frame it is in this idea, if we're having a group understanding of like kind of that, and we can again hold each other to account on this. I think that the easy one is the idea that if you guys decide to pursue harmful actions on individuals that you have not fully come to know or understand.
What if I think that I already fully understand them?
That's the thing. That's also you judging a book by the
Or
cover.
But what if-
by judging
Yeah,
by
but like if I thought I read the whole book because I thought it was a short story, but it's not actually a novel, is it really my fault?
then that's gonna mark your stain as your human.
Well, I'm not
yeah.
Greg.
See, I think that's the easiest one. It's the idea that breaking that one
That's where
is
it's go
an
get
easy
me.
stain on your humanity, and it's
Mhm.
probably the one that could most lead you to having to constantly have to roll this kind of stuff, or further plunge you into the concept of being a monster.
So it's not my fault if there's a plot twist at the end.
I'm glad that we've established this. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm glad that
What's
we
a
can give you an
twist?
easy out, like with it, because like you just need to make sure that hey, just because it's a Ventru doesn't mean it's a bad person. Maybe.
I feel like you should have Patty give me a list at this point of like the 3 things you need to ask yourself before you judge. And it's like if you know this, this, and that, you can judge them. And that's when I make a decision.
Never
just saying.
judge a breed until you look up its end.
Exactly.
The veterinary, isn't that the veterinary oath?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Something like that.
We got it.
With great power,
Nailed it.
with great power comes great responsibility. I think it's usually just this idea of like, I think it could be like this, maybe this idea of like you guys justifying your choices within something, but also acknowledging that you also might have to be responsible for the cleanup. You know, the idea that you have to do the follow through. It's not just like you do the action, but if the action does have a consequence, you have to pursue the follow through. And if you don't, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a stand on humanity, but I do think it would start to like feed into
Chip
something.
away.
Yeah, there's some kind of thing, and you guys are able to manifest that however you want.
It's almost like if, let's say, some sketchy dude walked into your place of business / your bar and seemed dangerous, and if you didn't say, hey, let's go outside and not put all of these random people in danger, that's responsible. To be like, hey, let's take a step outside, because I know one person here is also kindred, everyone else is probably a human, and if things go bad, they are in the crossfire.
Yeah, there's like there might be like, because it's like the hideout, it's probably like good 3 to 5 that are on shift. The others are probably back.
Yeah.
But like there is a good chunk of humans in
And
that
so so I think
establishment,
like for that, like you honestly in that session of deciding to meet with Leo outside in the parking lot away from a bunch
That
of
was a
innocents
very good example.
was
of that.
really
Yes.
good responsibility on
He
Gertie's
got
part.
him drunk as a skunk
Yeah.
to lunch.
Yeah, Sami, yeah.
Yeah, could this even show up as a like when a strength displays its shadow side. Like Penny is really good at insight. She's really good at understanding people. So like if she, for whatever reason, decided to use that strength to like manipulate someone to do something for her that was not in their best interest, or like if Gertie started using her strength to like intimidate people for protection money rather than using that strength to like physically defend.
Yeah.
Or like if Declan started like blackmailing people.
Yeah.
Instead of just like.
Yeah. Well, it's because you are superior beings in terms of your handling your abilities. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Word.
I was also going to say this one as a better way, not as a punishment, but to err is to be human. Like this is one of those things where I kind of want to challenge you guys on the idea of having failures on your rolls. So, for example, if
don't look at me.
I'm not looking at you.
No, she was looking at me, and I felt eyes. I have the worst rolls you'll ever see.
Yeah. So
it's fine.
So
it's fine.
In the event you guys do have outcomes where maybe I've told you the DC, like not necessarily if you don't know what the DC is, but if I've mentioned to you this is the DC of it, you guys can definitely choose to, like, if it's really low, to auto succeed. But if you guys do want to roll for it, and then in the event that you fail, what I could potentially do is play it on the idea that maybe the next check you have is a lower DC, or that you guys add a die to the next roll you make, because you have expressed, like, I will embrace this failure. But that does mean the concept of, like, riding the wave, and then acknowledging not just the idea that's like, oh, I can do it. It's acknowledging the idea that, again, as a monster, sometimes the failures you will have will become tremendously big. So it's like this, it's a small boon. It's still understanding and not pulling the full punches of it, but that's the one thing.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of, again, with a previous session when we did have V, and how he made the active choice to tell you he wanted to auto fail when Penny was looking and trying to figure him out.
Right.
Because for him, it was not only him being like, well, she's a psychologist, she's going to figure it out, but also being like, in that moment, he felt like he had nothing to hide, and he wanted to show his flaws so that Penny could then be like, oh, this guy genuinely believes what he is doing is right.
Yeah.
And it is like good. And so I think even something like that, like not only like allowing to roll and possibly do it, but like there could be certain times where it's like, you know what, for the greater good / like for the story, there might be moments where it is better for us to fail. And instead of doing like a full bestial failure, just being like, you know what, I'm just going to auto fail as if I rolled a normal failure.
Sure.
And doing something like that too could kind of be interesting, because then it kind of, again, with the whole idea of like Vampire being a very story game, it makes me think of like sometimes like giving us that also the opportunity, but also like the kind of push with the tenant and with the possibility of like a lower like threshold or an extra dice for us to be like, you know what, I think that this makes sense in the story for me to just not do it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know what, I like that. I like the idea of just being able to say, I'm gonna actually fail this. That's really cool. I like that a lot. All right, guys, I think we got our little creative redemption right here for ourselves.
Well, great. Well, I have a question before we start. What was the one thing, with Leo, it's very similar to what we were just discussing, but I can't remember specifically. You said that if I choose to go, and I can't remember what I said because I didn't write it down, but if I choose to do one thing or another with Leo, something was going to happen. I can't remember.
That's going to be a different situation altogether when we actually get into the session.
Okay, cool. I can't remember what it is. I didn't write it down. I feel scared.
In a couple minutes, but for right now,
I'm so scared I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck.
Don't worry. Hey,
okay.
Don't worry. I'm going to make you plenty scared in a second. Yeah. But right now,
I should have written
we've resolved all this. I hope this was very informative for all of you guys. If you are all interested in trying to figure out how to set Chronicle Tenets, this was really fun to talk about here myself. I found a lot of interesting things. It's kind of cool shit that Vampire the Masquerade does. But yeah, so thank you all very much for watching this. I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you all build your own Chronicle Tenets and kind of build your own kind of like group personal bonds like this as well. And until next time, we'll see you guys with the Masquerade soon. Bye.